series that I do. These games have been a decent length, right? In the top right, as the pink Protoss, he is Zest. Recently coming on top of his GSL group. Well, not on top, I guess. He won it. He won the things. The bottom left is the right there, and it is SuperNova, who is a weird player. We went over him. I actually brought him up last series, right? When I was comparing him to Dream. He came back from the military, streams. He still does stream, but he's definitely not just pure StarCraft. He does variety stuff. But he's always been a weird player. At one point, his weirdness was good enough to win tournaments. Not that he ever won like a GSL, but it was good enough to win some online tournaments and get really far in GSLs. Code A was, existed back when he was really good and all that stuff. So he was certainly a notable player. But when he came back from military, I mean, he kind of missed out on the Legacy of the Void train. And while he is great at taking new tools and adapting them and making something new and cool, unfortunately, in general, it just doesn't really have what it takes to continue on advancing in GSLs and stuff like that. Mechanics and just generally the weirder builds they're no longer getting him the victories, they're just getting him more losses. So we're gonna see what happens here. Last time we cast SuperNova versus Impact, he did like a Hellbat Ghost thing, which was always cool. But here against Protoss, he is gonna go for a absolute proxy, the 1-1-1 all proxy that looks like. Even the starport probably. It's going to be a transfer over into a Cyclone, looks like too. Maybe a tank, actually. That was a proxy some people did. Zest knows SuperNova enough, I'd say. He's constantly looking around with his probe, but he's unfortunately looking the wrong direction. When he looked over here, he didn't quite go far enough to see what was truly happening. But it's not a proxy Reaper. That would have already shown itself, right? But he is still going to chrono out that Adept, send it across the map, get his Nexus, and all the macro things, just with a little bit of a hint of paranoia as his probe finally makes its way across the map. If he had actually scouted directly, he would have seen that it is in fact a proxy, but right now, he's a little in the dark. Let's talk about a starport. Well, forget that. He's going double factory, double Cyclones. So all of a sudden, like, 2 Cyclones will appear, and then 4 Cyclones, and while they are light units, they're low HP units, I should say, not light units, they're fragile. If they get a lock on, they're gonna kill something, anything, and Protoss has a substantial weakness in the early game, where they just don't have a lot of units. The units they have are incredibly annoying and very effective, but there are not a lot of them. So 2 Cyclones take out 2 units, and suddenly Zest has no units. No, meat or dairy is hard. It's not difficult for me. My dad's been vegan my entire life, and, well, or vegetarian, but vegan for the last, 20 years, and, well, okay, hello, good, come on in. Yeah, how you doing? It's the you're being pulled into this. Mass repairing the Cyclone is effective. But anyways, and, we always made, vegan dishes and stuff, so I don't find it particularly difficult. And I've always done almond milk over cow's milk. So, 2 Cyclones show up, and what do? Instantly turn on a pylon. Now that's actually kind of good news, because Zest didn't lose his army that was small when it was gonna stay small, basically. His production is now done, and he is going to chrono the hell out of it and build what is a sizable amount of units that can actually take on the Cyclones. If he had lost his Adept and a Stalker, and then Adept and a Stalker, and Adept and a Stalker over and over again, that's when the Cyclones are effective. So already I'm in favor of Zest's position. These pylons, I guess, are threatening a warp in, and you know what? They're more than threatening. They're actually going to warp in. Zest feeling very safe on the high ground with his force field. Takes out one of the Cyclones. No SCV repair, really effective with that force field there. And he doesn't mind giving up his Nexus. He knows how all in this is with the SCV pool. And the Adepts are just taking on the SCVs here. Even if the SCVs were pulled into this, the Adepts would win. It would be far too effective. Unfortunately for SuperNova, this has already failed, unless he can get into that high ground and take on every single unit here. But the ever-powerful Immortal pops out. There's not a lot of room to maneuver either, and the SCVs, the dumb SCVs, are repairing the barracks instead of repairing the Cyclones. Not that it would have helped that much. The Immortal would still be able to punch through it. More sentries are being built just to safeguard the ramp, so we can then thus build more Immortals and more sentries and more whatever. Which is exactly what he's going to do. But all the SCVs have been killed on this side of the map. The Orbital is simply lifted. Warp Prism's coming out next to help break the lock-on. And that's an absolutely critical tool. It's also a pure mineral tool. Very, very cheap compared to an Immortal. But also equally, even more so useful. Tank is I mean, the tank is the best option here for sure. But it's still not going to do enough against especially the Warp Prism again. Like a second Immortal would be great too, and then a Warp Prism, but a Warp Prism after this is actually perfect. Unless it gets locked on. Jeez, 4 lock-ons with the upgrade, by the way. Against a Warp Prism? You kidding me? It goes down super quick. Guardian Shield could be used, but with lock-on doesn't actually work. It doesn't even matter. GG. Zest holds against SuperNova's weirdness. So weird, man.
Received. Thank you for appeasing the Overmind.
Thank you, RV Shard, for the 21 months. That was a great game. It happens. Zest responded very appropriately. It really, like any of those full proxies, right? Then not just a Reaper proxy. Like, it's really about blitzing your opponent. If you don't get the initial couple units killed in the get-go, I feel it drastically reduces the chance of it working. Even if you do manage to contain your opponent and get the Nexus and so on. Critical of veganism and dietary extreme. I mean, my dad's been vegetarian for 40-something years and vegan for 20. He's doing okay for himself. What do you do for protein? Believe that we need drastically less protein than people would have you believe, and then also eat a well-balanced diet that does include legumes and beans and tofu and stuff. It's always nice when I have this, like, super, like, easy, like, thing to point to. Where I'm like, my dad does all this stuff. And they're like, well, is he super weak? He lifts every day and goes biking for hours and swims all the time. And he used to be a marathon runner. Well, does he have, like, problems with his bones? No. Not that other 60-year-olds wouldn't have. What do you do for salt besides play StarCraft 2? That's all the salt I need. Game number 2, starting off very similar to last game. SuperNova sending out that SCV. Get him! Get him, buddy. Definitely genetic. Okay, if you say so. You know, the great thing about sharing your goals is that it means that you have a little bit more pressure to actually do them. And you don't have to share it, like, necessarily with anyone else. Like, just literally writing them down helps a lot. The downside of doing this type of thing is inevitably someone asks a more specific question. Then you explain, and then someone asks other specific questions, and then you explain. And then suddenly you get a lot of backseat Xers. You get a ton of backseat like health gurus and exercise gurus and StarCraft gurus. 2 hours StarCraft is not like, it's just tons of backseating. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, like, you know, if you want to discuss it amongst yourselves, sure, but yeah, you might just be wasting time and effort. So there you go. There it is. If the sound's not on, why would that... They were on last time. Why would that change? Stupid StarCraft. All right, so proxy barracks, but this is nice because I see no other proxy. SuperNova's going to proxy every structure again. I don't know, that's a bad time usually. Pros players have gotten very good against that. The simple proxy Reaper into like even factory expands seems to be still somewhat effective. Still does that thing where like the Reaper disrupts the economy well enough, hopefully gets 2 or 3 probes. And throws off the game well enough that it's you know, still occasionally worth doing. And that seems to be what SuperNova is going to go ahead and do here. He might proxy something else like a starport, but with no SCV on the map, it looks like that's not going to be the case. He does still have every guy in gas, though, so I think the starport's not going to be coming. Reaper gets a little too ambitious. Oh my god, I really thought I was going to die. Well, 1 probe is okay. He definitely wanted another one here. Looks like it has split his attention. That's too bad. I guess 2 probes will technically die because this one's going to be gone. Stargate response from Zest, who did not push off that Nexus. So really not taking much damage from this opener. Because the other, you know, the other thing you can do against, especially people who aren't pro gamers, is you proxy anything and they're like, oh my god. They press the emergency like stop button and they build like 4 gateways and shield batteries and don't go for a Nexus and all that stuff. So it looks like the guys in gas weren't for a starport, but just going directly into a cyclone. I thought you could take 2 out of gas to do that though, but oh, because the armory as well. Right, all right. All right, so the armory goes down too, and now we have a starport on the way, but he did also manage to squeeze in the CC on the low ground. The Oracle Stargate, you know, Oracle or Phoenix follow-up to a proxy can be very helpful, actually. Stargate kind of covers almost all follow-up options of the Terran. But the nice thing is it doesn't really have a lot of attacking power, right? So you can pretty safely take a CC on the low grounds. It's certainly going to be helpful against a Cyclone. You lift the Cyclone, boom, you're done. That's it. Gucci. Jesus, Diesel. If you really want to know. No, I'm just kidding. Somehow the Cyclone actually does damage. The Phoenix were too busy, I guess, wary of a starport, I suppose, because they didn't see one with a probe at any time. That they weren't there for the Stalker. So the Stalker dies. The Reaper gets a couple more probe kills. In fact, up to 5 kills at this point. One of that 6th one so badly, but damn, that became effective. And SuperNova's armory here is for drilling claws, so a lot of widow mines are about to come out there. It might seem like a really terrible thing to do against Stargate, and it might be. I'm gonna be honest with you. Maybe every medevac is found and it's a disaster. But 1 medevac gets through with 4 widow mines with drilling claws, and even if you pull immediately, it's pretty likely a widow mine will get you. It'll get you. Widow mine 1 is revealed. Widow mine 2 was seen. He sees the tech lab spinning, but that doesn't automatically mean it's drilling claws. This could still be a surprise. I know, right? Rick Benz? Is that what I'm talking about? Humans can survive on basically everything. The jellyfish diet. Do you think they taste like jelly? I think they taste good. I don't think jellyfish is actually, like, edible. But has anyone tried? 2 widow mines come in, and they do have drilling claws, but the Phoenix are all over this. You know what the other problem with Phoenix are against this? Oh, no! Oh! Well, oh. Haha, he picked up a probe instead of a widow mine. So they're supposed to be able to pick up the widow mines to just entirely negate the whole burrowing quickly and shooting quickly thing. But he didn't pick up this one, and he missed the pickup on that one, so 9 probes have gone down in total. That's actually only 4 more thanks to the Reaper, right? So really not that bad. And of course, Drilling Claws does keep them hidden, but the robo has been built. Oh. Oh. Okay, well the probe pool was fine. 2 more probes go down to the widow mine drop in the natural. You are losing a lot to do this. You've invested in the Drilling Claws, which, you know what, sometimes can be totally fine to have in the mid and late game, so let's ignore that. But you are investing into 100 medevacs with every attack against a Phoenix player. Maybe against someone who opened up Blink Stalkers, you can get away. But with Phoenix, you're really not supposed to, and so far, they haven't gotten away. But another drop's on the way, and the one thing you can say about this is that it's keeping the Phoenix back at home. It's keeping everything back at home, actually. So SuperNova trying to get to Mech here is dealing with any potential pressure, well, that would have totally failed, by applying pressure on his own. So, the best offense is a good defense, blah, blah, blah. Wait, reverse that. Best defense, a good offense. But now the Phoenix are free to roam, man. They have taken down the Medivacs, easy peasy. And you know to be wary of the Widow Mines, as 2 Widow Mines will slaughter the Phoenix Flower. Oh, lordy. Oh, jeezy. Oh, baby. He hears some burrow. They're in that natural right there. I mean, Zest denying the third base mining is already pretty damn good. Observer comes in actually to take care of the Widow Mines, which is absolutely fantastic. Zest seems to be in total control here. Oh, dude, so close to having a second one hit him. But all right. Thors cannot be lifted. And uh-oh, he didn't realize there was Thors there. The Observer literally saw the Thors, but he was so focused on dealing with the Widow Mines, he just didn't really pay attention. The Phoenix gets slaughtered down to half the count they were at there. Literally. I mean, he is transitioning away from Phoenix, but you're supposed to keep them alive. Just because they're good at staying alive. So that's good for SuperNova, who is continuing to litter the field with Widow Mines, by the way. This is now not just a thing against the Phoenix, but also against any type of pressure on the ground, I suppose. Widow Mines are going to be effective against the charge lots. I mean, the problem that can happen is almost like the Brood War problem, right? With Spider Mines, where if these charge lots get on top of the tanks or dropped on top of the tanks, which would be cool, then the Widow Mines do the splash damage back to all these units. And while mechanical units are heftier than like a Bio Ball, it still could be problematic if you hurriedly burrow all your Widow Mines in a clump and then they all fire in the opposite direction they're supposed to. Or, you know, your pro opponent gets Storm or Colossus, and what am I taken care of usually? They're supposed to be taken care of easily in large numbers as the game goes on. So we don't see a lot of Drilling Claws in like a Bio game past the early game, right? Early mid game. But here this might be okay. Gonna clean up these 2. Phoenix still being useful, but Thor's gonna come forward. This is a really nice map for Mech. So let's disregard the Widow Mines for a second. We have Liberators, we have tanks, we have Vikings to help out, even if they ground themselves. They're still pretty helpful. I don't think that Zest should be doing this. He's going for the attack, but the Liberators themselves are already so difficult to take care of. They're actually not gonna get killed that fast. The Archons finally got on top of it, but the Phoenix don't kill them that fast. And the Vikings were helping in that regard as well. A couple of Zealots are what's left over, but a tank back in the natural, tanks back in the natural, taking their immortal. Master Parent the Thor saves that. And Zest threw away not the most expensive army, I suppose. A lot of it was charge lots, but Archons, Immortals, and all the Phoenix are now gone. The Widow Mines did not die in this. They just simply reset themselves, and that was bad. That was something he was not supposed to do. I don't think Zest had a full scope of what he was up against. You know, those missile turrets around. I stopped the Observers from getting in, and the Phoenix were trying to take care of the Widow Mines, not die to them in a suicide scout. So I'm guessing that was the biggest problem. Zest just didn't know what he was up against. But the other problem might just be overconfidence, because it's a Mech player who doesn't have a ton of units. I mean, once Mech has 40 tanks, everyone respects that, but at 3, it's like, oh, okay, maybe they're vulnerable. It was a choke, there was Liberators, there's Widow Mines, I don't know, man. I was very confident. And that's what I was talking about. Acropolis is a good map for Mech. You get these 3 bases, you guard these chokes, you wall this one over here, and eventually when you're at like that 170-ish supply or something, you go towards that 4th, unless you think you can be greedy. And then you gotta, you can take a risk. We do have that 4th on the way. Upgrade's looking pretty good for the Carapace, especially. That's the only thing that affects Widow Mines. They don't benefit from attack upgrades. So I usually see this for like Cyclones. Or you're actually seeing it, I guess, because of the Widow Mines. Which is weird. Or maybe this was the ultimate plan. I was gonna say, like, just for Widowmine seems kind of weird. They obviously help every mech unit. It's just usually you think of tanks, you think of attacking tanks, and +3 tanks are scary. In this case, they just live a little longer. But for battle cruisers, that's also where high armor can really just be absurd because, I mean, they already have naturally high armor, a large health pool, and then you add 3 to that, and then suddenly they just don't die to anything. Especially stalkers that aren't even fully upgraded themselves. There's only +2 is finishing up here. I'm liking SuperNova's position. That one fight aside, there hasn't been too much else going on. So on 3 bases since the Phoenix died in the little Widowmine mistake there. And it seems like he is capable of filling the rest of his supply with battle cruisers. Usually it's so dangerous to do this. So first you get a big mech army on the ground, and then you very carefully sacrifice units to transition into battle cruisers. But if you can just go straight to battle cruisers, well, I actually think that battle cruisers are the best endgame. Protoss endgame / late game is no joke when you combine storms and carriers and tempests. But actually, battle cruisers probably a bit better. You don't see those games very often though, because mech players die before that. Or bio players die before that, either one. An attempt to break this side is gonna go as poorly as the other choke. War Prism tries to go into natural here and absolutely fails. If there's one person who would start thinking of Brood War tactics to break a mech Terran, it would be Zest. He played Protoss in Brood War, but it's not really working out here so well. Stalkers who jump on top of this 4th base and look like they're gonna be able to grab it before the repair can go down. But the Widowmines, oh my god, they just massacred the Immortals and the Zealots. Nothing but the Stalkers survive. It's heavily injured, but they did survive. War Prism also saved those High Templars, but they didn't use a lot of those Storms. Storms are good against these Widowmines, but I didn't see any go down. I think that was an observer. Battle cruisers were also still kept secret during that attack. We just heard, oh, no they weren't. They're, hold on, where were they? Okay, I think they were attacking down here. 22 probes have now been killed. When you consider the Widowmines really didn't do very much, that's probably all the battle cruisers that I completely missed on the mini-map, so A+. But the Stalkers being warped in, I'm gonna assume they're warped in for those battle cruisers. A little bit of harassment was there as the attack went down. So they got some probes, but maybe more importantly, they revealed themselves. Storm drops are cool, but one Yamato, if it locks on, could be death to all those High Templar. I don't think he has Yamato yet, though. He does not. Also, a little slot on the upgrades? Oh, no. He's on his way to ship weapons and ground weapons. Edible jellyfish is often processed into a dried product. Huh. I mean, I see dried squid everywhere in Korea, but dried jellyfish? Not so much. Alright, Zest, I mean, the one thing he's been doing absolutely correctly, the fights are a little questionable, but he is expanding faster than his Terran opponent, which in this case is kind of like facing a Protoss opponent. Battle cruisers, as soon as they get to numbers of like 6, really start to get scary for Stalkers to deal with. Oh, barely saving that last one. Especially if the Stalkers aren't fully upgraded, although they did finish their +3 attack a while ago. Yeah, and they're just going to be more mobile. You're going to have 2 battle cruisers here, 2 battle cruisers there, and 2 battle cruisers there. And even if you have the gateway count and a supply left over to warp in Stalkers in every location, it's going to be 6, 8 Stalkers to 2 battle cruisers, which actually I guess supply-wise maybe isn't so different, but you know, the point is, like, you probably don't have the supply left over or the production in those gateways, and cannons can only ever help so much. So that can be a problem, but it is always a risk for the battlecruiser player. Ooh, no teleport. To go for harassment-based teleports, always a risk. If they teleport in, then they can't teleport out, right? And that loss of a battlecruiser isn't just a huge chunk of supply and minerals and gas and all that. It's a huge chunk of time. Battlecruisers, as they should be, one of the slowest building units, tier 3 capital ship and all that. No Chrono Boost to help mitigate that either. So it's a huge loss. So you see people definitely try and skirt around the edges to get any harassment done, but SuperNova is actually being caught doing that. And not quick enough on that teleport trigger finger either. Losing battlecruisers is kind of just a no-no. It's not supposed to happen. It's supposed to be extra critical every time the battlecruiser player does. In these circumstances, of course. That is on purpose. Purposely killing the stalkers. He is filling that supply now with Tempest, which are the best option. Carriers kind of suck. We all know that. But what carriers do occasionally pretty well is mess up the engagement. So, these factories are being awfully bold. I'm gonna teleport that one away. Anyways, but when interceptors go flying around, if you don't target fire, battlecruisers will absolutely target fire the interceptors. With their multiple attacks, they aren't that bad at killing interceptors though, so I'm not like saying carriers are the way to go. But sometimes when you see an addition of carriers, I would say that their purpose is less about any straight up damage they do, and more about like, well, there is a pretty high chance he will literally stop microing because the battle will last for a minute, or he'll be distracted, and the interceptors will buy me crucial shots. But Tempests are definitely the best way to go, as long as they're not combating head-to-head. So that micro we saw, with SuperNova being very aggressive, was very important. As soon as the Tempest is touched, it's like that Pac-Man comic, Pac-Man like cartoon. As soon as they're touched by like anything, they're like, you touched me, and they explode. As far as capital ships go, they're very sucky in that regard. But that was supposed to be balancing out the fact that they got the speed boost like a year ago at this point. 2 years ago? I don't even know. We got a lot of those miscellaneous upgrades on the way for Zest. He's rounding out all of his composition. Trying to take on these battlecruisers is at that point where it is just too difficult to be everywhere at once, especially for the Tempests. Obviously, Protoss has recall, but there you go, he's going to use it. But that does put the Tempest now in range of the battlecruisers. Yamatos go down, doesn't one-shot the Tempest, but puts them extremely low. He takes out the Stalkers, he takes out 2 Tempests, and he skedaddles out of there. And that's the risk, as the battlecruiser count gets higher and higher. SuperNova, I think, has already killed all of his tanks, or almost all of them. He's replaced them with static structures, which do not take up supply. Battlecruisers take up a lot of supply, but planetaries and missile turrets do not, despite having a human in them. I think he also had Liberator range? Yeah, he did, just to help out with the defense a little bit more. We don't see any of those miscellaneous upgrades quite yet. We finally have ISOC auto-tracking, but building armor should be following suit. But there's no other upgrades that SuperNova really needs once he's entirely maxed out on his ship weapons and armor. Whereas Zest, I don't think he needs Dark Templar Blink, but he is thinking of multiple options to take on this army. Because it gets to this point, and battlecruisers actually are straight up better. You can try and go into Void Rays, try to overcharge, which are very effective against those armored units, but unfortunately it seems they die too fast to really be effective. And again, when you're going for Void Rays, for not Tempest, you are saying you're going to fight head-to-head. Where Tempest can keep up the whole appearance of like, no, we'll never attack into the battlecruisers, we'll just kite away. Yeah. Eventually, you're gonna come to a point where you have to engage. You really nerfed the turret human in StarCraft 2. Yeah, down to 0 supply. Not even considered a unit. The battlecruiser count is insane. 13 of them. And Zest is trying to go for that mass air army, which, I mean, is probably the only option you really have, but it is difficult to really do. Nexus goes down, teleports off to the right side. I thought maybe to continue the Havoc spread over here, but he decides not to. 5 Voiders at a time, that is Zest's plan here. The Storms don't really do a lot to battlecruisers, but Splash is generally going to be okay. They do clump up a ton as they move around here. Revelation obviously very important too. Zest has a lot of the key features. Stalkers, I mean, they can attempt to be included. It's just that for the amount of supply you need in Stalkers, it's probably not as good as having something else in the air. It's actually a very difficult composition to beat. The whole thing is you're not supposed to let them get to this amount. And if you let them get to this amount, then hopefully you've not let them expand. So it's the only amount they'll ever have. But unfortunately, that's not how this has gone down. SuperNova has gotten his 4 expansions up pretty quickly, got his 5th really quickly, 6th is finally on the way as well. Lots of static defense. A handful of tanks will take out any contribution of the Stalkers, so you saw Zest just take them out of the equation entirely. But now we get to see what a straight-up Protoss air army looks like against a Terran. And, you know, Zest is really thinking about all these other things that can be important. He's thinking about the Revelation. He's thinking about Guardian Shield, which would be very effective against the Battlecruiser attack. But I don't think it's going to be enough. Battlecruisers are good when they're in high numbers. The Battlecruisers aren't at home. Tempest are finally finding at least something to dig into here. Stack defense going down. Nexus goes down. Nexus is dead. Zest could replace those, but he is now dangerously close to losing his production. This is all the gateways, which he's not too upset about right now. But he will be upset if his targets go down. Lots of orbital commands going down. Tanks actually should go down very quickly as well. The production, I think, is what should be being camped here as we get into basically a base race. But Zest is kind of wasting time. Actually, I do like this pylon field going down. I thought that might be cannons as well, but just the pylons, make sure he doesn't get supply blocked. Fortunately, it's only working somewhat. Zest has lost so much supply in those probes that he's actually got a lot of supply to work with the Tempest, but oh my god, here we go. And he is actually down in army supply. The Voider is overcharged. The Guardian Shield, well, can't happen anyway. Stalkers come in to help combat this, but oh my good lord. The Tempest go down so damn quickly. The Widow Mines on the ground. I was wondering what was happening there. I was like, man, those seem to be getting splashed, and they absolutely were. 3 Widow Mines adding a considerable amount of damage on top of those Tempest and Void Rays. That was a crazy good fight for SuperNova. I didn't notice the Widow Mines. I don't think Zest did either. But I think his army dies either way. And this is going to be game. Zest putting all of his minerals back into all these Stalkers and the pylons to afford the Stalkers and that supply. But that's going to be it, man. We are watching Zest die. He's trying to outrun the battlecruisers, but every Stalker loss is terrible. And planetaries with fully upgraded are great against the Stalkers. Imagine repair going down there too, and you would need a lot of Stalkers to take on a planetary. Battlecruiser is being once again quite confident, moving outwards to the production yet again. Scan reveals the army. Okay, there we go. The army. Revelation going to be used on the Widow Mines, but there's more Widow Mines than that. Tank's gonna get a shot off? Not even. Another base race is going down here, but the production is still untouched for our Terran player. Meanwhile, the production of Zest, I mean, it's already... You know what? Those didn't actually die. These weren't depowered either. Okay, never mind. Production still is good for Zest. She doesn't have a bank. Widow Mine's gonna get shots. More Widow Mine's gonna get shots. Some units went to the top side. He's trying to do the most damage possible, but he doesn't have an army to combat the battlecruisers. And battlecruisers don't actually have a problem in base races because they can teleport. GG. All this because Zest threw away his army and let SuperNova mass battlecruisers. Yeah, basically. Yeah. You know, all it takes is like the two mistakes in that mid game to let a mech player spiral out of control. The good news is though, is that as unfair as that sounds, is that it's usually not that simple, first of all, but also your option to just out-expand and out-supply your opponent is really good against Mech as a Protoss player. It's the reason it's not very commonly done. It's not really supposed to be that great. But when you get overconfident, that can happen. Banana's not lewd. The banana's number 1. Banana number 1. Pretty cool that SuperNova was able to tie it up 1-1. But now we're on to Cyber Forest. This would have been Zest's map pick in the Alima League. Get that loser's choice. SuperNova has started off the first 2 games with a proxy. One fully committed, the other one just a Reaper. It didn't really do a great job of setting Zest off, and SuperNova's follow-up of Drilling Claws also didn't really seem to do a whole ton. But that probably led into Zest's overconfidence to push up that ramp like that, which really was the start of the disaster. Thank you, UDPC brah, for that tier 1 sub. Does anyone out there take baths instead of showers regularly? Probably. I myself am like, I say no to baths. I really don't like them. They're pleasant for like the first 5 minutes, and then the water starts getting kind of mild temperature, and then unless you have like a really luxurious bath, the way you're cramped in there just kind of gets uncomfortable, and then you're like, well, I want bubbles, but if I want to use like shampoo and conditioner and stuff too, then like the bubbles will go away, and it's just too complicated, man. It takes forever. You gotta wait for it to fill up and then wait for it to drain. Well, you don't have to wait for it to drain, but you have to wait for it to fill up. Thank you very much, UDPC bruh. If I wanted Epsom salt baths, I have done 1 or 2 of those, but actually the only reason I've ever really used Epsom salt baths was when I was like really, really, really sore. That's pretty rare. And then otherwise I used it for my feet because, and then we're gonna little TMI here. I had a lot of problems with ingrown toenails, and it would help with that. But that doesn't require a bath. I would just put my feet in. I thought I would be a fan of baths. I was like excited about these like bath bombs and like, you know, treat yourself and stuff like that. But I was like, this kind of sucks. You know, it's a lot like, I don't know, like potato chips for me. It's like, I can see how people like them, but when I really think on it, I actually don't really like them that much. I take baths and I can sell the water afterwards. Ah! And toenails rebel. Yeah. Yeah, I had my first one when I was 18 on my way to college, and the doctor's local anesthesia on the foot wore off like a minute after the procedure was done, which if you don't know is a very painful procedure. Literally the needle in your foot to have it is already painful, and then they rip off the part of your toenail. Well, it hurts if you don't have that foot numb. So I literally cried my way back to my dorm. And then, for some reason or another, I had just consistent problems with that. Maybe, like, there's some, like, reports that, like, Accutane does weird things to, like, the growth of your toenails and nails in general and stuff, but I don't think I'd ever prove it. I don't think I can do a class action lawsuit and get some money for it. But anyways, it's also why I don't get pedicures. Fuck pedicures. We do have a proxy. Yeah, since we didn't have a proxy last game, but those are the barracks. This time he proxied the starport off of the 2 bases. That's not a real Phoenix, luckily for SuperNova, although I think he was unsure about it. Now he's sure, because it takes no damage. Hellions try and go into the natural. The Reaper grenade is good, but it doesn't actually squeeze past the remaining units. Plus, he would have been cut down to 2 Hellions, which is really not so bad. The medevac wouldn't have anything in it, so Zest doesn't have to respond to it super quickly. But now he's kind of paranoid. He fully walls off the natural. But the medevac actually goes into the natural. So a little bit of a bamboozle, but again, with only 2 Hellions, that gives him that extra shot to pull away, to get his army in position, and it's just not as effective. Behind this, SuperNova is trying to be very greedy. 3rd CC on location. The only defense he has is a bunker and the natural, which if Zest were to only go to the natural would be a great bluff. Yeah, I'm totally protected. Don't do anything. Trust me. But he actually has a 3rd CC building over there. Starport, unfortunately, will be found. Liberator destroyed. That's really bad for SuperNova. The Starport will be able to get a scout, but it'll eventually die. Blink's almost done, so they can blink onto this side. If they wanted, they don't. Now they do. Observer, no, Adept, actually. Goes into that natural in the main, but like I said, kind of misses the 3rd CC. This is also grabbing his own 3rd, but that's what Pro's supposed to do. What did I study in college? Well, when I went to that college, I only was there for a year. I didn't really study very much outside of general requirements. Then I transferred and went to a school for animation. Never got a pedicure, you don't need them. Well, no, like, no one thinks they really... Well, I take that back. Some people think they need them. Oh, my nails are so bad, I need a pedicure. Yeah, whatever. But they're usually seen as kind of just like a luxury. I just don't think they're pleasant in any way, shape, or form. Not just that they can increase your risk of ingrown toenails, but also I don't like people holding my hand and holding my foot and rubbing harsh things on my nails and forcing conversation. Sounds like a terrible time. This wall does not work out very well, and that is the downside of trying to wall against Protoss for sure. Tank finally pops out and will do away with its little push, but it was pretty nasty. Luckily for SuperNova, his 3rd CC finished up without Zest realizing it, so he was able to safely bring it back to the main and produce an orbital. We do have SuperNova once again going into Mech, with Zest hopefully getting a better attack this time. Cyber 4 is going to be a worse map for Mech. You don't quite have those easy peasy wall offs and then a choke over here. In fact, it's really not great in any regard for that. You can try and wall a little bit over here, but then these rocks will be broken down, and then this path will still exist. It's just, it's tough. Zest has once again taken very little to no damage from the early game, so we're just waiting for him not to take a really bad fight. The supply of probes is looking good, but noticeably, he has cut them. Big grab in the reactor there. He's got 1-1. He's got 3 gases, and he's got a heck of a lot of charge lots ready to be warped in with that warp prism. He's gonna go for the bust. It'd be very dangerous to bust SuperNova on 2 bases. That's the mistake he made last game, but on 3. But if SuperNova would ever push out towards a 3rd, which he needs to do, that's when Zest can jump on top of him and absolutely wreck him. I mean, this actually is going to be kind of laughable. SuperNova has not gotten much scouting past those Hellions, does not know exactly what's going on here. The scan actually was looking for the army, I guess. It's kind of a useless scan. Doesn't even see the lack of a 3rd gas or 4th gas here. And this seems like it's a disaster waiting to happen. Like that meme, like it's like minutes before disaster or something. Like this is, no. This is not going to be pretty. Blue Flame is going to be done, but there's not even Hellbats here. The armories aren't done. Stalkers blink in, take out 2 tanks, and actually SuperNova just taps out before the fight's even halfway done. GG.